My mother she got her symptoms on 17th April 2021. I had previously been diagnosed with COVID. I had tested positive. 2 days before me, on 10th, my father had tested positive. So there was like the whole house was full of COVID positive patients. So my mother was anyway stressed because of my father and me. And so she already had like a bronchial asthma problem since 6, 7 years. She had been diagnosed with it. So her lungs were little like more sensitive than ours. And so she tested positive on 17th, and her symptoms basically was um, nausea. She had like a really bad cough, and her fever was increasing. It was 101, 102. Her oxygen dropped by like around 93, 92 on 21st April, the day she got her CT scan done. And she had her D-dimer test and everything, which the doctor basically tells us to do during those days. And so she got moderate level pneumonia. And the CT scan showed that there's some glass opacity. I actually don't know the words, but it basically just meant that she has to be admitted in the hospital ASAP. And during that time, as we all know, that there were no hospital beds available. So the only hospital which she could get through was Indian Spinal Injuries. So 21st late evening, like late night, 22nd early morning, she was admitted. She was in the ward for I think 10 days, and her situation sort of worsened from there, as that hospital did not have any oxygen cylinder support. Like it was being like there was shortage in that hospital. And they I mean, so she basically, her situation worsened. We had to give her remdesivir and plasma, but nothing worked, and she was in the ICU from 30th April. She was admitted in the ICU on 30th April. And yeah, things were really tough because my father was also in the hospital, and he recovered and came back on 25th April. And like I'm 22 right now, I'm turning 23. And even my symptoms were not mild, they were moderate to severe. Even my mother had shortness of breath throughout. She had nausea throughout. And basically, yeah, and the pneumonia was spreading. Um, Thankfully, luckily, on 11th May, we were able to shift my mother to AIIMS, and she was still in the ICU. She then went to pulmonary ICU by like 22nd May, and then she was in the pulmonary ward on 26th May. From 29th May, she was in the private room. So she had like a long overdue like exposure of COVID, and she was in the hospital for 45 days. Um, During that time, my aunt, basically, she was the one who was coordinating everything because we were all down with COVID. So one of her colleagues in the law fraternity actually told us about the oils that we wanted to use in the hospital only, but because of like their policies and all, we couldn't take it. And we had heard that it's basically like helping with, breathing difficulties. And so she like, we got to know about the oils during like my mother's hospital stay. And people had told that it's helping with breathing difficulties, and the fever is coming down, like basically like the infection. So we actually started the next day. She came home. She came home on 4th June, and on 5th June we started with the oils. We were using Elixir AV, we were using Sudarshan, we were using Fortis and Back to Clear for the infection in her lungs. And she was using it for like regularly. Like we had made like a strict schedule with her nurses in attendance because she was on complete bed rest. So she was being applied that every like, so it was 4 times a day, and we followed it diligently however it was written, and however like the doctor had told us to do. And yes, so with each and every review with the doctors, we had to go every month for her follow-ups. So we were touch wood, we were seeing her improvements in her pulmonary function test, in her 6-minute walk, in her fever reducing, in her like lung capacity being increased slowly, of course, but she was able to breathe properly. After like coming back from the hospital, luckily, thank God, we didn't have any issue with her breathing. So it was mainly like the oils were basically helping her recover fast. So I actually like we definitely would recommend oils to everyone. And because, it it had its own soothing effect basically. So yes, her oxygen had reached around 94, 95 when she was in the pulmonary ward. So she was basically on 1 liter oxygen. And when she came into the private room, they were basically checking for how long she can stay without the oxygen. But when she came home, if I'm not mistaken, on the first day, like when she walked till the washroom with the walker, her oxygen did drop till 89. But after that, thankfully, it was like 94, 95 along with the oils, and then it finally reached 97, 98. And it has touch wood remained there. I would say it after like 14, 15 days, we started seeing the improvement, that it was stabilizing. The status quo was being maintained. And within a month, I mean, month and a half, so July mid, her oxygen was 96, 97.